Record. Welcome to Total Freedom Radio, the show that's all about raising the bar of knowledge, healing hurting people, and spiritual warfare with Rena Lynn. I've got a wonderful program for you today with a great lady that you'll really like. Her name is Missy Maxwell Worton. She's an award winning author, speaker, and destiny coach. She writes across media as an author, including film and television. Her greatest desire is to awaken women to the superpower they have within them as a daughter of the mighty and loving God, encouraging them to courageously pursue the greatness and purposes they were created for by fulfilling their unique destiny calling. Missy is a former actress and singer in a nationally faith-based Broadway-style musical company dealing with family and faith issues. She loves being in God's presence as a worship leader, as well as serving children and women's ministries. Missy, I'm so excited to have you here today. I love courageous people. I love courageous women. I love women who aren't afraid to jump in and make a difference. And people, I want to tell you that Missy is the author of this book, Don't Mess with Mama. So, Missy, I want you to tell us a little bit about how this book came about and where you have gotten to the place in your life that, and just briefly share with us what your new book is about and risking it all to rescue daughter.
Well, thank you so much for having me here, Rena. And it's always great to meet a fellow person who is out there fighting for the justice for children and for, just humanity in general. So thank you for what you do. Well, one thing, my book is called Don't Mess with This Mama. It is a true story of us rescuing our 6-year-old adopted daughter from going into child enslavement. And it happened in 2012. And our daughter was 6 years old at the time. And we ended up flying over Hurricane Sandy to go into Ethiopia to rescue her. And it was over a month. It took over a month. We had to go into hiding to do it. And of course, I won't tell you everything about it. But when I came back, we had several production companies come to us and say, we want to make this movie and we just need you to write it. And of course, I do writing. I write for film. I'd written for film and television at that time. But an individual came to me, his name's Howie Klausner, and he said, I'm going to write the movie and I want you to write the book. And I absolutely said, I'm not a book writer, I'm a film writer. So let's start there. But that's the story, and God has just used it to open so many doors moving forward now.
So, what does the phrase "Don't mess with this mama" mean to you, and how did you decide to use that title for your book? It's a very interesting title.
Well, that's actually a funny story because I worked for 7 years on my book, and I worked it under the title of Finding Favor because the little girl that we were rescuing, her name was Favor. And so I thought, finding favor, it's perfect. I love it. I love the word favor, all of those things. And about a week before they were uploading the book with my publisher, he said, we've got the wrong title. This isn't the right title. I've met you. I've looked at the book. I've read the book, and this isn't it. And I said, okay, what do you think the book should be? And he said, your title is Don't Mess with This Mama, risking it all to rescue our daughter. And I thought about it and I said, will you give me about a week to mourn this and to just pray about this title? Because I felt like at the time that the title was turning all the attention onto me, and I didn't want the attention. This was something that God did. I just said yes, and I did not want the attention. And so he gave me a week, called all my mentors. They got back with me and they're just like, Missy, yeah, that's the title of the book. That is who you are. But what I recognized and what finally convinced me that this was the best title was when I realized it wasn't about me at all. It was about every single mama out there, or every single person out there, whether biological or just somebody who has stood in the gap for a child, that they've said, no, not on my watch. Their justice will be performed, and I'm going to take care of this child if it costs me everything, and I'm going to fight for this child. So really, Don't Mess with This Mama is about all of us who have it in our heart. We have it tapped into our DNA that no, we're going to help the children. We're going to stand and we're going to help them, because those who have no voice, they need us. And children, they really don't understand everything that's going on around them. So we are their voice for those who have no voice. So that's what Don't Mess This Mama is with This Mama is about. It is rising up to be the voice for those who have none.
I absolutely love that. Imma tell you, I love mama bears, and my daughter used to have a boyfriend that would give her dad that eye, and I'd say, "You don't worry about him. He's not your problem. I'm your problem." So I'm one of those mamas too. And in your book, Don't Mess with Mama, you share how you believe that God supernaturally showed up. So give us an example of that, please.
My goodness, when I was writing this book, and of course, keep in mind, I felt that I wasn't a book writer because of something that was said to me in eighth grade when I was growing up. They said, just stay away from being a book writer. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I'm writing this book. And after I write every single chapter, I print it off, I put it to the side, I come in the next day and I would read, and I would see the miracles that were buried within the treasure, buried within the treasure of the story. And I would say, I would call my husband and say, did you realize what had to happen for this to happen? And every single chapter has a miracle in it. Just how God divinely orchestrated. I'll just give you one ex- definite experience example of that. Um, it was about 2 months before we were going, and we decided to go with a friend to a church that had, if you've ever heard of Chris Overstreet, he's the one that wrote my foreword. He was on a show called, I think it was called Father of Lights. I might be misquoting that, but his name is Chris Overstreet, and he was speaking in Franklin, Tennessee, where I live. And so we went, and in the middle of everything, all of a sudden he turns to me and he said, this lady right here, you're in the purple. Can you stand up? I have a word that I need to deliver to you. So I stand up, and the first thing out of his mouth is, I just see favor, favor, favor going before you. And he just continues to talk, and I'm smiling. He says a lot more things, but he said, there's something you're getting ready to come up to. He said, you need to hold on to two scriptures, Ephesians 3:20. For more than you can hope or imagine, this is what God is going to fulfill for you. But then you need to hold on to Philippians 1:7, that he will be faithful to complete all that he has started. And I thought, oh, okay. I wrote them down and I just held on. Well, when we got to Ethiopia, now keep in mind, our plane had been delayed for 2 hours. We had this short window of about 3 hours to be able to fly out. We flew out 1 hour before Hurricane Sandy slammed into the East Coast and just absolutely devastated the region we were in. So we got there exhausted, worst flight we've ever had, because when you fly over a hurricane, it's a little bumpy. So we got there, and I was sitting in the lobby as my husband is checking us in the hotel, and the elevator dings, and I look over, and who walks out but Chris Overstreet, the very man who called, basically said, I had a word for you. He comes over to me and he goes, are you stuck here because of Hurricane Sandy? And I said, no, we're here. And I told him we were there for a rescue mission for our daughter. And he said, wow, okay, when is this going to happen? And how can I pray for you? So he grabs my hands, and his wife comes right next to us, and the three of us are just praying. And as he's praying, he starts saying, Father, I just thank you that favor is coming, is walking in front of him. I thank you that they are going to get favor in this situation. He continues to say this about 4 or 5 times about favor. And after he says amen, I look at him and I said, did I tell you what her name is? And he goes, no, you didn't. I just, what is her name? And I said, her name is Favor. And he's just like, wow, oh my gosh, this is amazing, because I just kept hearing the Spirit of God rise up in me and say, let them know they have got favor. I am with them in this battle. They are going to have favor. And he said, I thought it was odd. They just kept saying, they've got favor. They've got favor. And I'm like, okay, they got favor in this. But no, it was God was speaking directly to us through Chris Overstreet to let us know we're going to get favor no matter how hard this is going to be. Just hold on, because I'm telling you, before the end of the game, you win. So we held on for the next month, even with the fear of going into a third world prison. We held on that we would get favor. So that was just one of many just absolute miracles that took place.
I absolutely love that, and you said something that generates another question in me that I hadn't really put down to ask you, but, I had a similar experience. God told me I was gonna write a book in 4th grade, and several times throughout my life, people would say directly to me, "You don't ever need to write." Every professor in college would try to get me to change my major to writing, but people in my life discouraged it. So I have this idea. I know other people that whatever their calling is, or whatever their task was, people in their life at a very young age has spoken into them against that. So I think the enemy has an idea of who we're going to be and what we're
Yeah,
supposed to accomplish, and he tries to cripple that in us from a very young age. So I'm really excited that you pushed
yeah,
through that and you did it anyway and gave us all an opportunity to read your story. And also in your
absolutely.
book, you express a concern for orphans being an easy target for trafficking. Now, I've done a lot of study in that, so I'm interested in your idea about that. Can you expound on that, please?
Yeah. Orphans are such a big target, and so in foster care, they're a huge target for human trafficking. First of all, with orphans, there's nobody to speak up for them. The mother, the father is most likely gone or has abandoned them in some way, whether it's because of their health, they just couldn't handle it, or they've passed away. I mean, there are some horrific situations out there. And but what I've seen through my study is anywhere from six, I believe it's back when we went through it in 2012, it was between 63 to 82% of all traffic victims hit in that area of foster care slash orphans that go into the human trafficking. So it's a big problem because they're disappearing in the foster care.
That is frightening, and I have read quite a bit about the foster care system, and I totally agree with that. Now, I'm going to probably say this next name wrong, but share your experience of attending a Reinhardt Bonk crusade with 100,000 Ethiopians in the midst of battling for your doctor. And please correct that. I'm sure it was wrong.
Absolutely. He was a legend. He went home to be with the Lord, but his name is Reinhard Bonnke.
Okay.
And he was one that God gave him a heart for Africa. And so I remember growing up, my mom would talk about Reinhard Bonnke and that he was going to win Africa to the Lord. He was a great minister. And one of the things that he would do is he would hold these huge gatherings for a full week. And people would just come, at least in Ethiopia. Everybody would walk, and we were in a cow field. So basically, you are walking through. There were no chairs, there were no outhouses. There was nothing out there. In fact, you had to watch where you walked or you're going to break an ankle. But the beautiful thing about it is as they're praying, as they're praying for the meeting, the thing that I remember most is they were praying for the people that, Father, we just ask you to heal individuals, that they'll walk again, but then they said, and any person who is dead under our voice, we command you to rise up. And I mean, I'm like, wow, that is a different level of prayer, and that I want that kind of power. So they prayed that, but then as it went on, and there's 100,000, we stuck out. I stuck out definitely like a sore thumb. But there was so much love, and during one point, as they're praying for people, people were coming up, and I'll never forget how watching a woman who had this huge goiter, just, it was massive, just literally shrunk into nothing, and her neck looked like mine. I watched that, and there was no magic, there was nothing. And then the next thing we saw is somebody's wheelchair got thrown up to the stage, and he goes, whose wheelchair is this? And they said, where is he? We need him to come up here and talk. And they said, he's running home to tell his family that he no longer needs a wheelchair. There was so much love and goodness in that place that I'll never forget it. And I remember taking out my camera and taking pictures, and just, I have these pictures that I love, but there's fire coming off of people's heads. And whether it was my camera, I think it was fire, because it's
Wow.
just, the power of God was so strong in that place. So that was another miracle. And I just said, if we can't win after this, and it was a miracle that we were there, because we were supposed to have left a few days before that, but that's when we got stopped at immigration.
What a great story. I have stories like that in my book series where the healings and they go in because I still believe what the Bible says is true. And I've not seen a lot of that in my life. I've seen a little bit, not on that scale, but I absolutely love it. And if you'll give me just a minute, Missy, let me acknowledge my sponsors. We'll get right back to the questions. Hey, let's get right back into it. And
Absolutely.
I'm, as so often happens when we're doing something great from the Lord, when we've got our spiritual high, if you will, when we're right, we know we're in the midst of his task. We know that everything's going right like he was. The enemy puts his finger on the places that we need the most for our support, right? So during this, you and your husband start having marital problems because of a decision he made. So can you tell us about that and how you handled going through this marital challenge and how you overcame it?
Well, first of all, I have the most amazing husband, and this was one of those times where my husband, and this is something I'm learning about men, is that their number one priority is to make sure that we are financially cared for, that we have everything and we can afford everything. And at the time, you'll learn in my book that my husband had lost his job, so we were going through with this adoption, believing that God would provide a job in the end, that He would provide the finances, and we had sold everything that we could to have enough money to move forward
Mm.
provide for her. So when we started hearing that this man who was actually over our agency, our adoption agency, he had decided that we were not going to get favor. And so he kept telling us to return the kid. And I'm just thinking, we've already passed court. We've already gone uh, to the, well, I lost the word, where it's the embassy, the United States Embassy. They had declared us parents over her. The Ethiopian Embassy had declared us parents over her, and she was our child, and we were just waiting to fly out on Friday. Well, had a stirring in my spirit that we needed to get out. I can't explain it, but all I could think about is if 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 we have to, I will get in the ocean and start like swimming towards America to get back because I knew it was so bad. And so I had sent him down to basically, will you please find another ticket out of here? And he went down, and without asking, he just turned around and said, okay, we can't get out of here in time, and it's going to cost too much money.
Oh,
So he made a decision to not buy a ticket to get us out anywhere, that we would have to go through, and he believed God would come through for us on Friday. So I was praying that they would not stop us and we would get out. Well, they stopped us. And we were there. They told us to go on back to America, that they would keep her. But the thing is, we knew there was a very dangerous individual that wanted to keep her and use her for her own, for his own purposes. And we were not going to leave her. We were not leaving. They didn't like that. So they took her passport. They took everything from us. And we were stuck. And I looked at my husband at one point, and I was just that look. Every husband knows it when the wife goes, don't don't say another word. And I went into this place, and there was a divide put between us. So here we were fighting for our daughter's freedom, but at the same time, I could barely look at him because I felt like he didn't listen to me to get out, and we would have been home by now. And instead, we were trapped in Ethiopia, and we had to find a place to go, and we were surrounded by radical Islam in the middle of it. And it was right after Benghazi had happened. So here I was facing another fear. I had the fear of flying, that dissipated, but then Benghazi had just happened, and here we were, smack dab in the middle of radical Islam, an area of Ethiopia, and I was angry. And so I did come to a place, and I'll tell you more about that. But yeah, so I was upset with him. He was afraid he was going to lose me if we would lose favor. And of course, he could be, you cannot be more further from the truth. I would have never left that man, but I would have been a good angry for a while.
that happens to the best of us, let me tell you. This is Missy's book. This is the cover, and I have it here at home, and you're going to love this book. Missy, there's a chapter in this book entitled Letting Go. So we see you come to a place where you realize that things may not turn out like you'd hoped. So tell us what shifted that um, you were able to handle that and now find peace once again.
Mm, that is, I think that's a chapter called Letting Go. And it was the day before we were going to meet our accuser, the man who was trying to get favor. And he had accused us of human trafficking, that we were coming in to human traffic this precious little girl named Favor. And we went up to the mountains to get away from the city. And as we're going up there, we see these beautiful green areas. When you think of Ethiopia, you think of just desert, but it was beautiful farmland where we went. And as we're coming back, I see the city of Addis Ababa. And I asked the driver, I said, can you pull over? I just want to look over the city. And so we pulled over, and I was looking over the city and just giving our situation to the Lord, and just thinking, I don't know how we're going to win this, but you said we would. You told us that we would get favor. And I turn around at one point, and I see this Ethiopian lady. She's carrying these branches about 9 feet. I would say they were about 9 feet on her back. They were all dead. And she was bent over. She barely was watching right before her each step that she would take. I mean, bent over. And I stopped her, and I said, can I take a picture? And of course she said, yeah, give me some money. And so I gave her some money, and I took a picture of her. And as she left, I just watched her, and I took another picture from the back, and I thought, this why would a woman do this for literally pennies a day? Literally pennies a day, carrying these branches. And we went home. I didn't say a whole lot. I was very quiet that day, and I was sitting at my computer, and all of a sudden I hear the Lord whisper to me, "You know, you're a lot like that lady with the branches, not forgiving your husband." And I thought, well, but he's wrong. We're stuck here because of him. And I recognized it didn't matter who was right. It didn't matter who was wrong. We were both in this fight together. And if we did not come together, we would lose her. We would absolutely lose her. So I saw that moment as that, what the Lord showed me is I saw how those dead branches were my unforgiveness and me holding on to the I'm right, he's wrong. And as long as I held on, I would be bent over carrying something that had no value, absolutely no value other than to bend me over and to enslave me. And so in that moment, there's a few things that happen, and I shared in the book, but in that moment, I literally forgave my husband in a moment, and he knew it. He absolutely knew the moment that I said, I forgive you. I forgive you. And from then on, there was a shift in the trial, there was a shift in everything we did. And we went in so strong and so mighty with both of us going in together. It was like a lioness and a lion coming in. And it was like water started to part in the spiritual realm. And whenever we'd walk, people would just, it would be like something is up because we came together. And it did something absolutely supernatural in our marriage.
I love that. You know, the Lord says, "Wherever 2 or more are together,
Mhm.
that Jesus will be among them." So when you
Yeah.
came back together, then he was there. Now, we're not gonna finish everything I wanna know about your book, so I'm gonna have you back next week, right? We've got about 2 minutes left. I'll ask you the next question. If you can answer it in 2 minutes, great. If not, we'll bring that to next time and just say whatever you wanna say for the next 2 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, the next question I have is if you when you find out that your daughter has been taken from the orphanage and now she's put in foster care, which was your greatest nightmare, what went through your mind? Did you know at that point that she could be put into slavery and you'd never see her before?
No, I had no idea what it actually meant. I thought a foster care family would that's the way America works. They're in a foster care until you adopt them, but that's not the case in Ethiopia. It was she was gone. She would no longer be mine, and we'd have no opportunity to rescue her or bring her to America. But when I found out, the first thing that I said, and I had peace that surpassed all understanding, and I just said, I trust God. I trust him. He loves her more than he loves me. He loves her more than I love her. So I trust him to fight on her behalf. And that's what I did. In the hardest situations, you just have to trust God that he is sovereign and he knows the best and highest plans for us and on our behalf.
I love that. We're gonna be done for today because 'cause I'm stuck into my radio time, but we'll bring you back next week and we'll finish this discussion, and we're so excited to have you with Total Freedom. See you next week, Missy.
Okay, bye-bye.